my fellow readers, this is Dark Symphony 777 with the top 10 fanfictions of 2021. You're wondering, why am I on this page and not showing the fanfictions? I'll get to that. But before that, as always, I'll be leaving a link to the stories in the description below. I actually realized while I was setting this up that I didn't do it for last year's. So, yeah. I will be leaving a link to the stories in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications. Give me your thoughts on the list as a whole, and whether or not another story should deserve another spot. And finally, this is my opinion. Not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, before I get into the actual reviews itself, I want to actually discuss this because this is actually something important that was mentioned last year in my top 10 short stories by a commenter who mentioned why I set things up the way they were. And that's why we're on this page. So this page is actually the full list of every single fanfiction I have done so far. Like, I've done on this channel. Whether it be a short story or a review or any of that. These are all the stories I've done. And I'm not gonna go down and, and talk about this. But I'm gonna try and keep it. Excuse me. I literally just woke up. I have a really weird sleep schedule. I have a really habit of figuring out how stuff works. So let me describe it as best I can. In the short stories top 10, a commenter mentioned the fact that, how unlike the reviews, whenever I get to the end of a short story reading, because I really haven't done that many short stories this year, as of, in 2021, I always give a rating of a scale of 1 to 5 at the end. But she mentioned that why aren't all the rated 5 endings? And I'll actually scroll down to, let's actually just go to 2020. And you see, like, Street Fighting Dirty, this, you see, like, a couple of them. I just realized, why is this? I just realized, why is that orange? And you actually notice that, some of them are, I put some of them in certain places. And we get to the bottom. Where is it? Here it is. And this was actually the short story that won last year. They called her Ruby. And this was an amazing story. You actually see that I put it at 10 out of 5 because it's that good that that it just really broke it. So let's just use the color Ruby as an example. I put last year's, for the short stories, They Call Her Ruby at the number 1 spot for the short stories. And a lot of people were pointing out, like, why did you put certain stories where they are? Wouldn't it make more sense to put, like, all the 5 rated stories at the top and, and like 3. And I was like, I told the commenters that I don't really know how I'd be able to describe it in typing. So I figured next year, when I do next year's top 10, I would dedicate the beginning of the part to just figuring out the thought process behind how the top 10 works. And you'll see, like, some of them are just completely just random numbers. They're actually by design because these listings, the 4 out of 5, 5 out of 10, stuff like that, they're supposed to be based on the technical parts of the story. So the reviews / readings are supposed to be, at the very minimum, trying to be as unbiased and objective as possible. It's not concrete. You literally cannot be 100% objective. You can't. But these ratings are, what you see, the numbers here are more based on the technical aspect of the stories. Like, what's the writing style like? how well done are the characters? How well done is the writing? It's not supposed to be my feelings. It's supposed to be how the stories are written out from a pure technical perspective. And I just simply say what that is in the short stories, because the short stories are meant to be completely different from the reviews, where I talk more broadly. But with the short stories, I basically just read out the story, and then I just give you here's what it is based on the technical aspects. The top 10s, however, are more preferential. Like, they're supposed to be the stories that I like the most. So they might not be the best written stories. They're the stories that I happen to like the most. I know that sounds kind of weirdly hypocritical, because, it's supposed to be the top 10. But when has a top 10 ever been objective? Unless you're going for, like, sports, like, who is the best basketball player of all time? Like, of course, you would look at stats and stuff like that. But then you go, like, a top 10 wrestlers. That would be just completely preferential, because of how professional wrestling works, But when you have a medium like literature, where it's very, very, it's very, very preferential, like, you're not gonna... It doesn't matter how much you want to change it. Any top 10 is just going to be based on what did the author like the most. What does I like the most? And that's basically what the top 10 is going to be. Also, and that's the end of that. Now, I will mention that this will be the start of not putting any better off alone tier stories in this list. So let me actually just pull them up. All right, so Darkness Arises Reborn and Being Maylene, they won't be on this list. If they were on this list, then Darkness Arises will be easy number 1, and Being Maylene will be number 2. Would be the runner-up, because both these stories are just really, really good. So let's actually ignore that. Okay. So now that I got that out of the way, let's actually get into the review by mentioning the 2 honorable mentions. I hope I got this right. Yeah, here we go. The honorable mention, and probably the best short story of the year. Since I didn't do much short stories, I might as well just get this one out of the way. Smudge Spellcaster. Like, this, despite being a TG story, a transformation story, or twinning story as well, the story is hilarious. Like, just seeing, let's see, Jaden, like seeing this guy become, having this guy become this smug little lolly is hilarious. And just the process of they're dueling, Varys just smug the entire time, turning all of Jaden's monsters into witchcrafters. And it's like, I'm not going to do anything unless you dress up. It's like, ah! And of course, the best part, the fact that they take a break in the middle of the duel for like an hour. They like both fall asleep. And then they're like both awake and they're both smug as hell, and it's like, I'm gonna finish this duel. And it's just so hilarious. Like I like the design of Madame Very. Like, come on, you look at that face. You look at that smug little face, and you picture yourself. It's like, I want that. What did Yu-Gi-Oh become? It went from like all monsters and creative stuff to like waifus. Just waifus. You don't even want to know how much art of Madame Mary is. Like, she's up there. But now that I got that out of the way, let's actually. But yeah, I like this story. This is probably the best short story of the entire one. I'll probably leave a link to this story in the description as well as the other, as well as this one. Super Koopalings, episode 20, The Princess of the Lake Kingdom. This will be the last time we see Starlit Duck on this list. Like, one of her stories is actually on the list. It's a really well done story. It really showcases the thought process of her actually improving. Like, you don't see it as improved. Like, it's not as improved as like the one that's gonna appear on this list. But you can tell that she's trying to go for a more wide range of storytelling. Like, it's like she's implementing a bunch of little storytelling that's gonna be probably explored later down the line. And it's an overall solid story. Like, this, like, real talk, this is probably gonna, if not for the representative of the Super Koopalings, this is actually gonna be on the list. Like, this would have been the obvious number 10, but it wouldn't have made it anywhere past it. Not an insult to Starlit Duck. It's just here's the thing with this top 10. You have 5 at the top and 5 at the bottom, and on those pages they can all be rearranged in any order and it makes sense. So like 10 to 6, you can rearrange it in any order, it would make sense. And the same thing with number 5. Like that, on those two halves, they're like equal in like how well written they are and how well done they are and how much fun they were to read. So, you know, let's actually get into the top 10 with number 10. Wrong one. Did not mean to do that. There we go. Oh, god damn it. There we go. Yeah. Great. This computer messed it up. The computer messed things up. Zoro's Odyssey is number 10 by Cardboard Hut. This story, yeah, spoiler alert, you probably saw the other one. Spoiler alert. Zoro's Odyssey. This story is just not as good as Straw Hats and the Iliad. Like, it's good. I like a lot of the ideas that the author put into the story. I like the idea of region. I like the idea of not Cerno. Cersei. I liked a lot of stuff. I didn't particularly like the use of Perona in the story, except when she was drunk, because I just liked that idea. I just liked the idea of just a drunk Perona just going around negative hollowing everyone with while she's hiccuping her laughter. Hoda 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 hic. Hoda 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 hic. And it's an overall enjoyable story. It's not as this one kind of falls into the prey of sequel. I believe the phrase is called sequelitis, where the sequel is just never as good as the original, and Straw Hats and the Iliad is just a million times better, in my opinion. Like I said, this story is a good story. I just don't think it's just not as good as Straw Hats and the Iliad. Straw Hats and the Iliad was just infinitely better. So let's move on, because I wanted to dedicate a large portion of the story to this story. Number 9, Mega Man X Ghost of the Machine. Notable for being the first fanfiction to appear on this list that I didn't recommend. You're wondering why I did that. Here's the thing. Because this story is a tale of two tales. You have the first half, and then you have the second half. The reason why it's on this list is the first half. So you're wondering why. You're probably wondering, so why is this ahead of Zoro's Odyssey then? Because the first half of the story is that good. Something I've been hearing a lot in a lot of through the grapevine, especially from my friend. My friend actually kind of somewhat follows politics, and he's been hearing a lot of stuff related to comic books and stories. Stories have always been political, and comic books have always been political. And a lot of people like Badger, like, nah, politics are never political. It's like, more on the side of, I'm kind of like more in both agree. It's so hard to describe this. I'm in the thoughts that certain stories need to be political in order to be told. If a story doesn't need to be political, then don't make it political. But if a story needs to have any sort of political point, then you better then go for it for that one point. And the reason I bring that up is the first half of the story is very political in nature. Politicizing the idea of Asimov's 3 laws of robotics is actually pretty genius. And using that as a platform to kind of go into this, well, robots deserve, the whole idea of, like, the robot masters, like, still being, even 100 years later, being bound by the 3 laws of robotics, and everything going on, and, like, them trying to find, like, the Reploids trying to find free will. We're introduced to the King's Court, which is like a group of other Reploids, and robot masters kind of free from the 3 laws. And it's all done really, really tastefully. Like, you can see the fact that the author is trying to make the idea of the laws of robotics somewhat political by having that be a major plot point in the first half of the story. By, like, the whole idea of, like, robot masters, do the robot masters deserve to be free, or is the laws of robotics still so confined with them they won't be able to do this? Like, what happens if they're free? Will they go mad? Will they we have to destroy them? It's like, there's a really nice level of nuance to the story. Like, we're introduced to the king, like with the King's Court, they all have, like, different personalities, but they all kind of congeal and gel together, and it's done really amazingly. And then Wily shows up, it fucks everything over. Like, I was about to say, why would he do this? I know why he would do this, because the guy wanted to be a freaking hypocrite, complain to people saying you shouldn't get upset when your stuff gets retconned, and then wrote this entire story because something he liked got retconned, which is completely hypocritical. Like, I can actually prove it to you right here. It's right here. If you go to the story, you go to the last chapter. You go to this last chapter. You read the authors, though. You mention how he's saying that people shouldn't complain about when their stuff gets retconned because retcon happens, and then become a hypocrite a paragraph later, complaining how he wrote the story because Capcom retconned a part of Mega Man X's history by implying that Mega Man X was the source of the Maverick virus, which, to be fair, that is very stupid because X4 and X5 make it pretty much clear that it was Zero, not X. I mean, the wording of the translation for the comic that the retcon appears in is kind of vague because it kind of implies that X kind of had a part into it because of programming, like because of antivirus programming in his software that kind of made it so he doesn't go mad and stuff like that, and that kind of went into Zero, and it's completely complicated. It's really, really hard to figure out. Like, it's Mega Man. The whole timeline is just completely fucked up. 9 ways to hell. But while I understand that was a stupid decision, that still doesn't justify, one, being a hypocrite, and two, writing this entire story out of anger. While this may not be the best story, I love the first half. Like, that's the reason why it's on the list, because that first half until Wily was revealed to still be alive was phenomenal. The characters, the setting, the pacing, the story structure, the whole core idea behind the story was phenomenal. And Wiley completely ruins it. It completely stigmatizes the King's Court and makes them background characters, which really makes no sense. It makes all the characters die, except for X, to try and forcibly say, here's how Mega Man Zero happens. Ta-da! Ta-da! But the author goes about it in such a way that anyone who's read for a long time could tell that he's trying to force this in and not making complete naturally, because he completely makes the entire first half of the story completely irrelevant. The Robo Masters don't matter. The Three Laws don't matter. The King's Court don't matter. X doesn't matter. The whole relationship between King and X and Wily and Light, all that completely just goes down the toilet in favor of just wanting to get this hopeless war. And even then, the hopeless war at least had some good points. It had Mutt Unit, which I really loved. I still love Mutt Unit. I love the idea behind it. I love Sigma's. I like Sigma's whole stick with the virus, Maeve. I like that, and that was it. Like, it's just so weird. Outside of those two things, I did not like the second half. It was just so pessimistic. It was so purposely hopeless, like in a very tasteless way. And again, it completely made the entire first half of the story completely worthless. It's like, why would you write it like this? And then completely make it written in such a way that's just two completely different stories. Like, why did the author have to do this? Just why? Just why? And I just found it so stupid that you would do this over his feelings, over him getting hypocritically upset that something got retconned. That is just such a backwards way of thinking. It hurts. It really hurts. Like, I really wanted to put this story on the list because of how good the first half is. If you're going, like, I would still suggest this story. Like, if you want to read the story, just read the first half. The moment it gets, like, where is it? Here we go. The prologue to chapter 8. Just read that, and then just ignore the second half. That's it. That's it. Like, that's stupid bedbugs. Okay, so the next story is Total Drama Infinite. Meme King's gonna be happy. I like the story. The story is entertaining, but I couldn't place it any higher than 8 because at the end of the day, this is just a comedy story. This is just a 200,000 plus shitpost. And even if it's a really good shitpost, and trust me, this is a really good shitpost story. It's really entertaining. It's really hilarious. It's just a fun ride. It's still just a shitpost at the end of the day. Or it's still just a comedy story at the end of the day. No matter how deep you make the characters, it doesn't have an engaging story. Like, half the characters are meta guys. The only characters you're going to be caring about is Dio, Katakuri, forgot her name. Charlie, there we go. Charlie, Tari, Edward, Dio, and Wendy. And, like, a couple other minor characters. Other characters. It's a good story. I really tried to put it higher. However, the first couple chapters, like the first, 2, 3, 4, like the first 2, 3 chapters, I'm not counting these two. Like, these, when it gets to here, that's when it starts to get good. Like, that's another factor that kind of plays into it. because you know you have like 26 competitors, so it's gonna be stretched that that it makes sense that he couldn't put time into every single character. And he did actually mention to me like he wished he could have made Sora a bigger part of the story because of Sora getting into uh, Super Smash Brothers, which I think was a waste because Disney screwed Sora over, in my opinion. I do like the story. Like I said, every single story on this list I like, and outside of Ghost in the Machine, I recommend wholeheartedly. But again, I couldn't put this any higher because it's still just a comedy story. There's so much stock you can put in a comedy story, and I love more rounded stories than anything else. But Meme King, it's still a good story. I can't wait for the second one to finish because I actually want to review that. Spoiler alert: when that story finishes, I'm going to review that, and I can't wait to actually review that story because I really want to see what you do with the characters because you do mention that you do get kind of serious in that story, like a mixture of very comedy and serious. I want to see how you handle that. And I love this story. Like I still like this story, and I still think it deserves to be read. I still like a lot of things. There's Katakuri in the background, looking like Katakuri. Oh, I love Katakuri. Not as much as Ulti, but I like Katakuri. Okay. Next up is Trials by Patricia DeLioncourt. I was really tempted to switch this and Infinite around. This was actually the hardest part of the list, figuring out which one goes where. But I think this is a good story. This is a good solid story. It doesn't really do anything too serious. Like it does have some minor humor with like what's her name? Rhea Belmont. Because her name's right there in the freaking Rhea getting like completely skeptical of Alucard showing up. It's like I don't trust you. It's like, why not? Because your father did the same thing to me. Fair enough. And I did like the escalation of like the cultists and Rhea, having to be forced to train and everyone finding out what's wrong with her, and giving everything more weight to it with like Galamoth and the implication that Galamoth might return because it's Galamoth. Someone like Galamoth ain't gonna go away anytime soon. But overall, this is a good, solid story. I like the characters. I liked Isaac falling in love with Rhea, like the whole will they won't they, but it's like they're kind of like awkward around it. Isaac, like honestly, Sarah is like the best part of the story. She just plays off so well with Rhea. I just love her, like just her complete over the top old timey reactions to like everything. It's like, what is this? Granted, it doesn't happen. Granted, she does it more in Trial and Untested, where she just wakes up after so long because, well, she's like the first person to actually get the spirit now, and now Untested she's like, yeah, I can get used to this. It's like, oh, and the whole stick with like Sarah and Isaac are really well done. It's overall entertaining. I like it. Like, there's not much to talk about this story with like the whole idea of like Dracula's throne still being existing, and them taken away, and then basically the throne acting as the seal for Galamoth is like Galamoth is such a threat to Dracula. He's like, my throne shall be his grave. It's like, why your throne? So I can sit on him, metaphorically. And drink wine, and while he's screaming at me, he's like, get your fat ass off this chair! And I'd be smugly saying, what is a man? A little pile of sitting on you? Nah. Enough talk. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. There's a reference in there somewhere. Let's move on to the next one. I against me against you. Again, this is a solid story. Like, I just really think the third act, that's really the only thing that's stopping it from being in number 5 at the very minimum. Is the third act is just a missed opportunity. I liked a lot of the report. I liked Twilight Sparkle's whole thing with not Simmons. Well, Simmons and Church. I like the reds. I like the blues. I'm a big fan of Red vs. Blue. I still have the belief that it should have ended at chorus because there was just really nothing left for the Reds and Blues to do. I mean, season 14, fine. You want to do some extra story to kind of fill in the gaps. It was fine. I was okay with that. But it really didn't need to end past chorus because I think that was just a solid enough ending that there's just nothing left to do for them. I like the whole idea of the retelling of like the recollection trilogy of Tex when she gets blown up by Andy the Bomb and she gets sent to Equestria instead of to Valhalla. I like the whole utilization of that, everything that goes on. I love all the little details like partway through Act 1 we get correspondence between the Chancellor of Charon Industries and Leonard Church, the director of Freelancer. I love a lot of details. It just really falls apart in the third act. I just think that the author did too many things in that third act and didn't make it long enough. Because you look at Act 1, it's like 11. It's like 11 parts, and Act 2 is like 12 parts, and then this is just like, while it's like 13 parts, it feels like the author wanted to try and stick to a 3-act formula, which really didn't work, and try to forge in too many good ideas, and rush through the third act despite being pretty long. Simmons' death is like completely sad, but it's kind of wasted away in the fact that we don't really know if he actually died because the implication is like he might have survived, might not have. It's unknown. The whole thing with Glinda and Rainbow Dash was very rushed. The whole climax of the story was kind of mishandled, except for the whole Twilight versus Trixie thing. I honestly thought that was not bad. But overall, it's just the third act is not bad. It's just it had way too many ideas to utilize in the story, and it really would have benefited from just basically extending 3 acts into 4 acts or even 5 acts. Like I heard of 5-act plays. Like you can do that. If you want to keep the act, if you want to do the act thing, that's fine. I got the fact that the whole act system is supposed to be represented by the Recollection trilogy being a trilogy. See basically season 6, 7, and 8. So it makes sense that you're trying to play into that. But it would have made more sense to play into like the whole Project Freelancer saga as a whole by incorporating like 5 acts to represent seasons 9 and 10. If you're gonna go that far, because it does end with Project Freelancer ending, and the epilogue does imply like Charon going after Chorus. So I just think the third act was a missed opportunity. I stopped it from being in the top 5. So, number 5, Cecilias Dad Redux by Starlet Duck. This was the big one. This was a really great story. Like, I had to give Starlet Duck genuine credit for improving leaps and bounds in such a little time. Like, writing is not the easiest thing to do. Like, it takes years. Like, I didn't learn these skills of observation to figure out, like the nuances of stories and how everything in story works and comes together, and how everything kind of and figuring out the small menial differences in certain writing styles, and how the use of wording in specific parts can convey a different tone and all that. I didn't learn that immediately. It took years. It took over a decade for me to learn, and the fact that she managed to get to this level in around 3 years is astounding. I've said enough praise in my review of Cecilias Dad Redux. I just think there's just nothing I really can say about this that I haven't said in the review. So I would simply suggest go watch the review and then go to the end and where I actually praise her like so much. And overall, this is just a really, really great story. Like, this is like the fact that she went back, she fixed every single problem with the original. Like, she addressed every single problem that I had with the original because she took my review, the original review of Cecilias Dad, to heart and fixed every single problem and improved on every single issue that the story had. There's nothing wrong with the story. It's an overall solid story. But if you just want to hear my full unbidden thoughts of the story, just go watch the review. Like, that's really nothing I can say. Number 4 is Dynamic Equilibrium by Grey X. It's the Bones and Filaria. I didn't think a story about gigantic like that eating people. The hell? Yeah, my screen went out. So I have to do the rest of the video without the little screen in the bottom. I don't know what happened. It just glitched out and conked out. Yeah, this is Dynamic Equilibrium. This story, I didn't expect a story like this to ever be that good. It is a story about a bunch of criminal investigators that do work in an anthropology museum going into a world where at the very smallest 60-foot tall creatures eat people as like a nutritional meal, and trying to find trying to solve a mystery about like people actually dying and not without being eaten. It's such a trippy experience, but the author made it so good, and that's just really, really crazy. Like, that's insane. The fact that the author went to these lengths to go for something as weird and out there as Dynamic Equilibrium. Like, that's insane. So well written and make it actually worth your time. Like, it's 400,000 plus words. It works. And the only complaint I can probably leverage is my one complaint from the review is the fact I still can't take Xona seriously, who is the main antagonist, who's like, I want to like upend the social order, the natural order of Filaria. And it's like, okay, so why didn't you kill anyone? Like, wouldn't it make more sense for like a complete revolutionary to kill one? Or if you're not gonna kill one, at least give off the implication that you might kill someone. But no, you don't. You go out of your way to say Xona is not gonna kill anyone, and that kind of sinks Xona's character a little bit. It doesn't really make her bad. It just, like, with a character like Xona, it would have made more sense to just have her kill someone. Have her kill anyone. Just how hard? Like, how hard was it to, like, just kill someone? Like, how hard? Like, wasn't that, like, it wouldn't have been that hard to just kill at least a random fairy. It could have been, like, a no-name fairy. Done. That way you take, like, her words have more gravity. You can't have a character whose sole purpose is changing the actual natural order and
legitimately change the food chain of an entire pocket dimension, because Stellaria is like weird like that, and then go, I'm not gonna kill anyone, I'm not gonna do, and then just completely kind of half-ass it by not having her kill anyone, and just make her powerful enough to beat up the gods and knock them off their perch and then become god, and then say like, oh, the predators are not gonna be hunting anymore, they're gonna be the hunted. Like, but your words would have carried more meaning if they killed someone. Because you can't take a character who wants to do something like this seriously if she's gonna go out of her way just not kill a single person. Like how hard was that? Like, how hard was that to do that? But anyway, Dynamic Equilibrium, a phenomenal story, definitely deserves to be this high. Freaking a very good fun story with like a trippy idea. It went on really long, but it didn't drag. And overall, I really liked a lot of the characters. Number 3, Jurassic Park Purgatory. Yeah, Purgatory's here. I love. This is a similar situation with Cecilias Dad, where like I basically don't really have much to say in this story, because this story is just again, just like the previous two. It's really phenomenal. Go watch that review. It's worth your time. I really loved the characters. I loved all the characters, especially the main 3, Sydney, Jane, and Clint. I didn't really. Even the author was like kind of mentioning how the author wanted to do something with Hannah, and it's like, it's not so much the fact that Hannah wouldn't have worked. It's just the more the fact how the author handled Hannah by bringing her back. Like Hannah outside the flashback can work. Like, you could have worked there. It's just the author just really kind of screwed the pooch with Hannah by bringing her outside the flashbacks. It just really didn't work. And outside of that, there's really nothing I can say. I really like the story. I love the pacing. I love the idea of just the different tones, and like each point of view for the characters is like a completely different genre. Like, you wouldn't be able to catch that unless you read enough that you can actually understand the differences and the nuances of what the author is trying to do. Like, you need to be really well versed in how wordplay and tone affect the story, and how even like the slightest change of wordplay can completely alter a story's genre. And this is really a perfect example of that. Number 2, Megami no Hanibira. Those of you don't know, Megami no Hanibira is a story about a bunch of lesbians. Not even joking, they have sex. They don't have sex in the story. It is referenced that they do have sex, but they don't have sex in the story. Summoning demons from their phones to fight a corrupt religious organization who want to work for an evil, tyrannical version of God. And are kind of forced into it by Satan, who's basically just an edgelord in the story. He's like, God wants absolute tyrannical order. And it's like, I just want people to have fun. I'll leave you alone. But yeah, this story is, I really wanted to make this story number 1. But a lot of that would have had to do with the fact is I technically only, because it got me to play Devil Survivor Overclocked again. And I honestly went back and went, no, that would be a complete and utter cop-out to make a story number 1 simply because it got me to play a game again. It would kind of be a hollow victory for the story. Like, it's like, yeah, it would have been number 1, but for such a petty reason, I don't think it deserved it. His story is completely amazing. I love the story. I loved all the characters. I'm actually surprised the author hasn't watched my Let's Play yet of Devil Survivor Overclock because I actually want his opinion on that. But this story is good. This story is really good. I love the pacing. I love the fact it goes by the whole Megami Tensei idea of each chapter being a day, and then each chapter getting longer and longer because so much stuff more happens in that day to kind of escalate it. And it's a simple formula, but the author makes it work phenomenally. The characters are really entertaining. I loved everything about the story. I just honestly had to give it to number one because I honestly, and then just like Trials and Total Drama Infinity, I had a really hard time switching between this one and number one, and I ultimately decided to make this runner up because despite the fact because I just simply think number one narrowly edges out Megami no Hanibira. And you already kind of saw it earlier. Let's just get it over with. Straws in the Iliad. The best story I read. The fact that the author managed to incorporate the One Piece writing style in such a way in fanfiction because the One Piece writing style is very, very visual in nature. Like, I mentioned this in the review. Like, One Piece very much heavily relies on visual storytelling. Like, specifically visual storytelling. Because of how One Piece works with, like, Logias and Devil Fruits and everything like that. So it makes it... So it'd be very, very hard to perfectly encapsulate that tone and writing style into a fan fiction. Cardboard Hut did it. I don't know how she did it, but by God, she did it. And there's a lot of nuanced stuff like that. It's just a very entertaining story. I loved how the author used the Straw Hats to kind of further the story. I love Zoro. I thought the villain, Troy, was really well done. And one thing I actually never mentioned in the review, I don't think I mentioned it in the review, was there was actually a little meta humor, a sort of wink and the nod to the manga and the anime and how it does its arcs and how Shonen does its arc by, like, when Zoro's about to fight Troy for the last time, Usopp and Sanji are like watching the whole thing, and they're like, they're like kind of weirded out. It's like, wait a minute, isn't this Zoro's the one fighting the final bad guy? It's like that seems like a more Luffy thing to do. It's like weird. It's like I get that. Don't you get the vibe that Luffy's always like the guy who fights the last guy? Like, you got a point. Like, yeah, I noticed that too. Which is a wink and a nod to the fact that Luffy's the main character, so therefore he's the one who he's the one who just like who's the one who has to fight the guy. But this is Zoro's story. He's more or less the main character. However, what pushed this story to number one is Helena's Sickness, a complete masterpiece in an original character, and perfectly incorporating the wacky world of One Piece into a character, and made it seem so natural, and have her work so well with Zoro, so well with all the other Straw Hats when they do meet up. Like a weird thing with like a lot of original characters in One Piece fanfiction is they always seem to be like girls that are like really plain and they just don't really fit. In that sense, they give up the vibe they don't really fit in One Piece because they're just too they don't really fit the vibe. Like, yeah, there's one story where there's like a chick who follows Survivor Law, and she's like a heavily tattooed girl, but she doesn't really have. She has a personality, but she comes off like she doesn't really belong in One Piece. And then you read this story, you introduced to Helena, you see her, you kind of see at first the same thing with like all the other OCs, and then you get to know her, and then you realize she's goofy, she's hilarious, she's over the top, she's serious when she does it. She comes off as very intimidating, and the author and Cardboard Hut mixes all this together in a way that seems very natural, and more importantly, fits into the world of One Piece. She made an OC fit so naturally that I actually want to see Helena appear in the manga / anime. Like, that would be really cool to see someone like Helena in that anime. Like, that, you never see that level of detail for an OC in any fan fiction before. Like, even other characters like Valkyrie. Like, Valkyrie has a very high level of nuance to her because of being a deconstruction of a specific Sue archetype, the villain Sue, of her building herself as a perfect character, and then having her watching her react to all that whole visage of just perfectness falling down around her, and trying to still be that perfect being that always plans everything out, that everything always goes right to. And that's an incredibly level of nuance. But Helena's really not that far behind Valkyrie in terms of nuance and character, and how will you see her character grow over the course of the story. You get to see more of her in like this wacky, weird Greek island that makes Sea Prism. Again, I know this in the review, like, she inadvertently foreshadowed Wano what it does. But Helena single-handedly pushed the story from great to phenomenal. Like, and it wasn't, if Helena didn't have the level of nuance and care and attention put into her by Cardboard Hut, this story probably would have been like 3 or 4 or 5, and Megami no Hanibira would have been number 1. But that speaks to the strength of Helena as a character, that she was just that well written. Like, and Cardboard Heart deserves more. This story, like, look at this. 188 reviews. This story deserves more reviews. Like, I think Megami no Hanibira has, like, more reviews. Like, no, this has even less reviews. People need to review this thing. Go review this. Go. Everyone who watches this video, go to these 2 stories, review it, read it, and just give your thoughts. But yeah, the Straw Hats and the Alien is the best story because of everything from the nuanced storytelling of perfectly incorporating the One Piece writing style into a fan fiction, Helena's character, the whole pacing, the whole setting, making this seem like an actual place in One Piece, which I never see happen in a One Piece fan fiction. Mainly because, like, most One Piece fan fictions are like Peggy C stories where, like, Luffy goes back in time, gets like a big harem, and then just repeats the whole events of One Piece they never finish because One Piece is just too long. But yeah, that's my top 10 of this year. Straw Hats and the Iliad narrowly overcome Megami no Hanibira. But the final part of this video, we shall look to the future. Some of the fan fictions I'm going to review for next year, and we have some more, but I want to focus on 2 specific stories. The first one is going to be the big one, Fallen Equestria. Yeah, I'm finally going to review this story. Fallen Equestria is usually considered the greatest fan fiction of all time, to the point where a lot of people say this isn't even really a fan fiction anymore. It's a goddamn brand. I'm serious. You can't even call this a fan fiction anymore. You just call this Fallout Equestria. Like it's a brand. Like, there's books of this. There's merchandise of this. There is, like, posters, tons of fan art. There's even, like, porn of it. There's, like, you barely see actual porn of fan. You know you made it big when a fan fiction becomes so popular you get porn drawn of it. Like, that's something else. I'm not gonna share the porn. Like the fact that Fallout Equestria has rule 34. Like that's saying something for the unequivocal passionate fan base. Like this is one of the very few fan fictions that has a legitimate fan base. And when people think of like fan fictions that are based off fan fiction, when they're not thinking of Shadow Chasers, they're thinking of this. And I have been wanting to read this story for years. Since I discovered, fan fiction, around 2013, 2014, I never got a chance to read this story. And now I'm finally gonna do it this year. I'm finally gonna review Fallout Goddamn Equestria. I did do Pink Eyes, and Pink Eyes was flat out phenomenal, like borderline Better Off Alone tier. But I want to see, does Fallout Equestria live up to just everything I've heard about it? Just everything I've heard about it, everything I come across, or is it like actual, like, over the top, overrated? Next one, the 1 in a Billion tetralogy by Starving Lunatic. I mentioned this before as like being a phenomenal 4-part series. It's a really great tetralogy, and I really want to actually review this again because I think Starving Lunatic is a phenomenal Kim Possible fanfiction. I know she's like moved on from Kim Possible, but I still think of this as bar none her best work. It's 4 stories. The last story, good God, I never actually got a chance to finish it because it just went on forever. I think where's 1 in a Billion? There we go. Like the last story by itself is just honestly just kind of dragged on a little bit, but that's fine. I can take that. I'm doing the rest of the Shadow Chaser series. I want to actually just do this. I want to like review the entire Shadow Chasers because this is the story when people think of when thinking of recursive fanfiction of fanfiction, when they're not thinking of Fallout Equestria, of course. And since I reviewed the original Shadow Chasers, it would be kind of a bummer to not do the rest of the series. And yeah, I can't wait. Project Lucifer. I mentioned in my Darkness Arises Reborn fanfiction, because I always said Redux since it's Reborn, that the only other fanfiction that kind of lived up to like how good it was to Darkness Rises was Project Lucifer, and I'm finally going to review this because I really love this story. I really think this is a really well done story, and I think there's one more I wanted to talk about. Not this. Where was it? Oh yeah, the two Ruby ones, because I got like 2 suggestions to do like 2 different Ruby ones. It's like yeah. It's The Beacon Civil War and Not This Time Fate, both by the same author. And I actually looked up Core All Around, and Core All Around actually has his own wiki. Like, that's kind of frightening. Like, I can actually show you. Like, he has his own TV trips. He has his own goddamn wiki! Like, I've never seen this before in any fanfiction ever. Like, I've seen a fanfiction series having wikis. I think Shadow Chasers have a wiki. Let me see. I think it has its own wiki. I'm sure it has a wiki. No, it doesn't. This doesn't even have its own wiki. What the hell? I didn't even expect that. Does it have its own wiki? No, it doesn't. Shadow Chasers doesn't have its own wiki. That's so weird. I didn't know that. But anyway, no, okay, not even Fallout Equestria. Not even the author has his own wiki, because this is pretty much just his own. Like, he has 3 stories. But this is the only one anyone cares about. But this has a wiki. This has a massive wiki. But this is the first time I've ever seen an author an author, a fanfiction author, have their own wiki. Let me actually, hold on. I actually want to check, where is it? Starving Lunatic. I think Starving Lunatic may have a wiki. No, Starving Lunatic does not have a wiki. No, it's just Coral. Like, that's just, what even is this? Like, I never understood the fact that this guy was so popular that he has his own wiki. That's just, that is just crazy. And this isn't even the first Coral Ran story that I reviewed, that I plan on reviewing. I did Professor Arc last year, and that one's actually the best reviewed story of last year because I loved Professor Arc so much. Mainly because I only found that story because of, like, Neo. I actually like Neo. Neo's cute. Like, Neo's cute. Like, come on. Come on. Come on. And you got come on, that smile. That look, that vague sense of superiority. Like, I'm happy because I'm trying to hide the fact I'm smug. Like, come on. I love Neo. I think Neo's hilarious. Neo's like my favorite character of Neo. Ruby. For all intents and purposes, Ruby is so bad. But I like Neo because she's so funny. But also, yeah, like, Coral along, like, the fact that this guy has his own wiki, it's just frightening. Like, he probably went online, found he has a wiki. It's like, sometimes my genius, it frightens me. But yeah, those are like the big ones. There's a couple others, like Aftermath, which is another Jurassic Park. This is the Toho one. There's another One Piece. I think this one was suggested by Cardboard Hut 2. There's a Frozen Bioshock one. I actually was kind of curious about this, so I just grabbed it. And Paper Mario Temple of the Sun. This is probably be the first one of the year. I figured Temple of the Sun, Dawn of the New Year. So this is probably gonna be the first. This one is probably gonna be the first one of next year. I don't know for sure. But yeah, that is my top 10. Yeah, there's a couple others. That's my top 10 stories of this year. Congratulations, Cardboard. Yeah. So this has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.